I know. I recently decided that I think 1998 was the worst year of music, and everything that sort of came out of that continued to be shitty. Hey, how's it going?
Hey man, how you doing?
I'm good. So sorry to keep you waiting today.
No worries, no worries. Where in the world are you right now? Literally,
I'm in
the
Antwerp.
world? Where's that?
In Belgium.
Okay.
Yeah, no. So it's
What time is it there?
8 p.m.
All right.
Yeah.
I was checking out your schedule. You guys got a gnarly tour schedule coming up.
Yeah, man, it's pretty action packed. I mean, this is just kind of the beginning here in Europe, and then it's like North America hard till the end of January. So it's gonna be good, man. I'm excited to be back at it.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, the dates I saw, I think all started like there's a serious run starting in September all the way till the end of the year.
Yeah, it goes until the end of January, actually.
Okay.
So there's like break for Christmas and stuff. Yeah, man, it's gonna be good.
All right. You still live in Canada, like yourself?
Yeah,
Is that where you?
Yeah, live in Toronto.
All
Represent.
right. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
So tell the listeners who may not be hip to the Sheepdogs a little bit. Well, first of all, you play bass in a band called the Sheepdogs. Let me set this up. And you have a new album out called Out of Sight. The record like just came out, right? Like last week or something.
came out on Friday, so fun to be putting out new music. Yeah, man.
How long had that record been in the tank? It was kind of a response to the pandemic and the lockdown, correct?
Yeah, I mean, basically the whole thing came together. We did put out an EP over the course of the pandemic as well. So we kind of just decided, I mean, we're a live band a lot and we travel and tour and stuff. And we didn't really know what to do when all the COVID stuff happened. And especially in Canada, like a lot of the lockdowns are pretty long and pretty serious. So it made it pretty impossible to do like a lot. And usually so when the pandemic hit, we had like a new record we were going to record in Portland, and we were on our way to, doing a bunch of tour dates and all this kind of stuff. And it all kind of just disappeared as everything did back then. And so as a response, we basically just started getting together whenever we could. We don't all live in the same city. So when we get together and we were allowed to be together, we would just jam, like kind of go back to the origins of the band. We just sit in a circle and we just work on tunes. And then when they were feeling good, we'd hit record. And so it kind of became a thing. It wasn't like making a record where you're like, okay, we got 12 tracks, we're going to record this amount of time. It was sort of like, let's get together as much as we can to kind of like beat the COVID blues, because we were just kind of over being stuck, not being able to do anything, kind of in like a holding pattern.
Yeah. When you guys are meeting, was the plan to come up with new material for a record, or was it just to be around people and play music and like reconnect with the origins of it all and like forget about the industry? Whatever. We don't know if the industry's coming back, because I mean, here in LA, like that's what it felt like. It felt like, shit, the world's over. Now what? We had no idea what was going to come back or when or how, or it was
the same thing. And especially like in Canada, there was so much uncertainty around like when, it's like they said the music industry is the first to get shut down and the last to open up kind of thing, right? And so it was sort of a bit of both. We were super bummed out because we like get our energy from playing and making music and performing, and so it was just it was a lot of the just like let's not worry about trying to make a record. Let's just get together and do the thing we know how to do, which is make music together. So
that's great.
Yeah, it was nice. It was like, it's very like poetic or romantic in a way, but it was like we didn't sit down and be like, we're gonna just make this thing. It was just like, hey, let's pick these dates when we're allowed to be in the same room together and whatever and do it. And it was awesome.
Wait, did you pick up during that time? Did you pick up any COVID hobbies? Did you start crocheting or
Not really. I mean, it's funny because I moved right before COVID hit, and so a lot of the time was spent like acquiring furniture. Like mid-century furniture and stuff on Facebook Marketplace. It was like kind of Facebook Marketplace was hot as shit. Right as COVID hit, man. It was like
you can't be around people, but you can buy a nice end table.
I know. It's like you could do like things where people would like buy and sell you stuff, because everyone just started getting rid of stuff. So I moved to this new place with my girlfriend, and it was amazing. It was very like Toronto is like very city, but it was sort of in a bit of a somewhat, I don't know how, it was sort of like Laurel Canyon vibes or something like that. In Toronto. It was like, it was cool. So we moved to this new place. It was awesome. And people just got bored and started selling their stuff. So I was like, oh man. So I started like being on Facebook Marketplace every day and doing these handoffs where you'd like, transfer people money, and then like they'd leave it on their porch and they'd be hiding in their house watching it.
The black market of ottomans.
No, it was great. I scored some good shit. It was awesome. But no, I mean, honestly, so like the first while we were just setting up this place. So that was like a good kind of thing to keep busy. But outside of that, not really. I think it was just kind of like hanging out and, playing video games. I don't know. I started playing video games again, which I hadn't in a while. So,
I haven't. I was never a gamer. I never got into it. But it just I never got super into it. But I also have like a very addictive personality, so I have to be careful, because then it'll be that thing where it's like 4:00 in the morning. I'm like yelling at the screen, trying to right. You haven't slept in 3 days. You got like empty cases of Red Bull all over the place.
Oh yeah, totally. No, so I didn't get into that, like nothing too crazy. Not like I didn't like learn another language. I mean, did anybody really learn another language?
No, but I felt like that was, we all thought we were like, oh man, I got all this time. I'm gonna go running all the time. I'm gonna be more active because there's nothing really else to do. I'm gonna exercise. I'm gonna learn a language. I'm gonna do all the things that I wish I had time for. No.
It was
I would
so
just
funny
sit there and binge watch Netflix.
Exactly, right? And just like get like fatter. I quit smoking right before the pandemic, which probably is a good thing, because I think if I wouldn't have done it before, I would never have survived.
Right.
I would have just kept smoking the whole time through. But I got really into running. But the problem is that like as a counteracting the smoking. But once COVID hit, everybody was running, and it was like I didn't really know what like you weren't sure if you could get it outside. And so I was just end up running in these weird areas, like industrial areas and stuff, because I was just trying to avoid people. It was like fucking like people like running around, like just everyone was so packed. It felt like, yeah, like everybody was just trying to like do something. Yeah,
right?
Yeah. No, so I got nothing exciting that I can say, but I think it's one of those things I will say that the one thing I do miss about that is there was this like weird moment. I'm not sure you can appreciate this. So much of a musician ends up being like, there's always this sense of FOMO, whether it's like other people are getting gigs that you wish you were getting, or other people are doing that. And it's like the first time in life where I didn't have this moment, I was like paying attention to other people. And it was kind of nice. Like it was what you're not doing right now or something like that.
Right. No, it did. It did feel good. Like it felt like the playing field was level finally.
Yeah.
Within
totally,
music,
yeah.
like, okay, great. Cool. Now I don't have to worry about like, not having this gig or that gig because nobody has any gigs. Like nobody has, like right now I'm working just as much as Pino Palladino. Like I'm totally cool with this. Everybody's at zero.
I know. And it was like, it's one thing I sort of missed because now that things are getting back at it, I'm sure you've noticed, like everybody's on tour, everybody's putting out records, everyone's doing things.
Right.
And it's fun to get back at it, but you're like, I kind of miss like when I can just sit at my house and look at
yes,
whatever couches.
I think that's the thing. I think like it's a double-edged sword, right? Because it's nice to be back out, and especially as musicians and artists, and you're back out there, you're doing the thing, you're around the musicians, then all the friends you haven't seen playing. Mm-hmm. But then you did realize, like, wow, all the stress, at least for me, all the stress I put up with that I just accepted. Like all the stress of fighting traffic and going to a gig and all these things that are now so stressful. Like, wow, I really used to do this that often? Oh my gosh, why wasn't I a basket case? I don't want to do any of that anymore. Like, I want to be able to see my friends, but now I don't want to see them, but I want to be able to see them. That's kind of where I live. Like, I want the option to go hang out, but I really like being at home now.
No, exactly. Well, that's the funny thing about getting back on tour, which is like what I've just been doing the last couple of weeks, is like getting back and, toured for I started touring when I was, I guess, 20 years old. So it's like, I'm 38 now. So it's like, it's pretty wild to think about, like 18 years I spent, touring, and then something went away, and now I'm rusty. Like I'm like getting grumpy over things that like shouldn't get grumpy over or whatever. Like it's pretty, or just everything seems more difficult than it once was. And I think it is. Like there's like certain things that become more challenging because of COVID. There's stuff still like getting fired back up, but it's
everybody's
funny.
Super cautious, at least here. And when I did some fly dates, like last year, I did a bunch of coastal stuff. Like airports are weird, and everything's like a little bit more complicated than it used to be. And I'm sure it's the same up there.
Yeah.
It's just.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, Canada is probably a little bit more cautious in some areas, but in Europe, man, it's just like gloves are off. It's just like great. I was joking to somebody. I haven't seen a mask since I was here. I mean, whatever. It's like whatever you want to believe on that stuff. But I was like surprised that like nowhere, like train stations, like trains,
everybody's just going for it. Like
just
whatever.
They're back. Yeah, I know. Yeah, so it's kind of weird. So the first tour we went on was in March, beginning end of February, March. And we went to London and to England. We did like a run of dates in England, and it was our first time back. And I was like, my mind was blown. I went from Toronto, which is still like somewhat not locked down, but you couldn't eat inside a restaurant, still had to wear a mask everywhere. I go to London, I'm like, nothing. It's like everywhere you go, and I'm like, this is amazing. And boom, I got COVID like 2 days after being there. So I was like,
so hold on. So this was March. So would that have been the Delta variant? Or the Omicron? There was one that sounded like a robot.
I think Omicron. It was the Omicron. I'm guessing it was Omicron. I mean, I didn't take it.
Yeah, I can't keep track anymore. But how bad was it? Did it knock you out for like? I remember after I got the vaccine, I was out for about 8 to 12 hours. I was just out. Yeah, but other than that, I was fine. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was fine. Some of the other good, the thing that's weird about touring, right, is you got your whole team. And so I have a few people in our crew that are a little bit older, and our sound guy got pretty sick, and I kind of felt a little bit guilty because he got sick, and he was fine, but vaccine helped him out. But I was fine. The problem is that I wasn't able to get back into Canada because you can't get back into Canada until you have a negative test. So I was like,
within 24 hours or 3 days?
24 hours. So basically, like you have to keep testing. So everybody else. We got an Airbnb, we hung out, everybody started going home, and I was the last to go. So it took me 13 days to get a negative test. I had the least symptoms. I was totally fine. And then I kept testing positive. So I was just stuck there. But no, nobody got hit super hard. But it's just one of those things. We had to cancel a show because we all tested positive, and we had to so that was a bit of a bummer. But outside of that, it was like a pretty big welcome back to touring, to just a couple days in, and then just boom, everyone gets COVID. Yeah.
You've been touring since you were 20. So who were you out with? Well, when did you start playing the bass? Let's get a little context here.
Well, I mean, so this is the day I started playing bass, the day we started this band. I mean, this band started as I played guitar and I played keys, but we kind of all got together as three buddies at 19 years old and just wanted to do something different. We come from a really geographically isolated area in Canada. The closest cities are 8 hours on one side and 6 hours on another. So you're kind of in the middle. There's nothing really around you.
What's the terrain like there? Is it mountains?
Prairie. It's like Nebraska. It's sort of like Texas or Nebraska or something.
Okay. Really wide open.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Cool. I mean, it's right above North Dakota and Montana. So I'll give you an idea what it's like.
Sure.
So, I mean, we're in the middle of nowhere. We're 19. We want to do something different. At that stage, we're you're still sort of hanging around some of your high school friends, but you want to I'm not really into the stuff they're into. So we all, the three of us, you and Sam and I, the original three members, bonded over just music and not seeing a lot of people playing the music we like, which is rock and roll music. So we just started jamming, drinking beers and jamming. And so Sam had never played the drums. I'd never played the bass. And we all learned to play together. So
that's cool.
There was it's one of those things where, I mean, I've played with other people and stuff since, here and there, but for the most part, it's been my only jam. And because we all learned together, was never really that point where I was in a ska band, so I want to be like this or whatever that. There was no influence or no tendency to lean towards something. So when it came to eventually start writing music, we were all sort of on the same page and kind of became a little bit more harmonious, I guess. Although I don't know what the other thing would look like.
Yeah, true. I'm fascinated. So I heard the record and then read up on the band. I heard the new record. I decided I was surprised to read that you guys were Canadian because you guys sound more American than American bands. I was listening to it. I'm like, all right, yeah, this is super Southern rock. I hadn't checked out anything. I was just listening to it. That was my first introduction.
Love it.
All right, classic rock, Southern rock. Almost every song kind of took me somewhere. It was a track 3 or 4, maybe 5 on the record. It had a groove that I'm just Lay Down Sally. That's Lay Down Sally. And then this other song had this thing. And I'm yeah, I dig that they have all this vocabulary from that period of music.
Mm-hmm.
The Southern rock thing, all of it. It's just, it was kind of very positioned in a time and place. And as an American and playing a lot of those tunes, it's great because I felt like it was really speaking the language of that music. How did it happen that you guys got this Southern rock Laurel Canyon vibe up there in Canada?
We always joke is we're from Southern Saskatchewan is where we're from, so we're in this. Okay,
still the South.
We actually probably arguably in the area we're in is the most liked in America. I mean, I think it's funny. We grew up I said I'm 38. So when I was in high school is when Napster was popping off. And so it used to be find, your cool friend's older brother that would turn you on to stuff that wasn't on the radio or whatever. But because when we were 15, 16, we were able to do the thing people do on YouTube now, go down the rabbit hole, find out about artists, listen to music. So we just consumed a lot of music as teenagers. It really got us sort of ahead of where we would have been had we been reliant only on listening to music as around us. Because the bands and the other people in music around us were really into in early 2000s there was lots of metal or emo bands or big or sort of not
That's
really
that whole baritone singer thing Nickelback, Creed, Puddle of Mud. That was the early 2000s after the grunge. Then rock went there. The other direction, and that was a dark place.
I recently decided that I think 1998 was the worst year of music, and everything that sort of came out of that continued to be shitty. There was at that time, though, 1998, if you look it up, that is I mean, they talk about the Woodstock 99 being the epitome of bad music, but 98 really set all that shit up. 98 you look at what
Oh, go ahead. Is that a thing? The Woodstock '99? I remember that happening. I'm 40, so we grew up on the same stuff.
Yeah.
I don't
say,
remember.
Like Woodstock '99 was like, that's like the epitome of like when like the height of Limp Bizkit, the height of Korn, like angsty male angst metal like stuff. And there wasn't a lot of like rock music. That's what that was.
Yeah.
Or it was pop music. It was sort of a battle between that and like the Britney Spears NSYNC like TRL Live shit, right? And so I know. And so in that Woodstock documentary, they really pinpoint that like that Woodstock '99 is like the precipice of the shittiness, and it like sort of continued on into the early 2000s. But in 2004, when we started the band, that was like the beginning of like White Stripes. Kings of Leon put out this like EP around that time that's really cool, like earlier on, super like Southern Rocky.
Yeah.
Like
I love that
like,
first record by them. I love the first record.
Oh, yeah.
And the follow-up record, I remember hearing the single, and I forgot the name of the single, but it didn't. I felt like they lost their identity or something. It didn't sound like Kings of Leon to me, and so I just never really checked out the record.
Yeah.
So 04 is when the band got together, and this was, you guys are coming out with the sound that is kind of the complete opposite, and if anything, like 30 years older. So how did you guys get hip to this? Was it someone's older brother or a parent that hipped you to some like Crosby, Stills and Nash, or where did you start to get these sounds?
Well, I think a big part of it was, like I said, we sort of began, we were at the age where you could use Napster to go down these rabbit holes. So we would discover all the, you'd learn about Led Zeppelin, but then you'd like go down a rabbit hole and like, find like, I don't know, weird bands that sort of sound like Led Zeppelin, like, like Leaf Hound or something like that. Like you really get into, that's like super random. But, so as a result, we were like getting really into it. And at the same time, there was sort of like this rock and roll resurgence where bands were starting to do that. I mean, the other guys in the band, their parents were musicians. They were like super like hip, played them older music. And like, obviously you hear like classic rock radio, but I don't know, we got really into it. And so it was just sort of like the music we like to listen to. I mean, we always sort of just made music we like to like hang out and drink beers or, whatever that ends up being. And that's sort of the music we made and sort of always spoke to us is why we ended up doing that. And at a time when sort of like in the beginning of 2004, there was lots of cool bands that were playing rock music that were kind of bringing it back to a certain extent. And we were kind of into that all.
Yeah, Kings of Leon was great. I love the production on that first record. What were some other bands that were influential on your band? Not just you as a musician, but the whole band. Sure.
I mean, I think like obviously like we're big fans of the Beatles and Creedence is a big one.
Any from that time period specifically? Any from the early 2000s?
I mean, we were listening, like Kings Leon was a big one. Black Keys, early Black Keys stuff was like, all that super like kind of dirty blues stuff we were really into.
Foo Fighters? I feel like David is the last one still carrying the torch of rock and roll.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Foo Fighters is weird at that point, right? Because like the whole like Everlong era stuff had kind of passed and they were moving more into like the more modern rock thing. So I don't know if it's sort of a lie, but I agree. Like he's like the last true rock star or something like that.
I know.
But he's like the last rock star. He's a good guy, not like one of those guys who's like rock star is a shitty guy. Like he's a good guy. Because there's like the whole thing, right? Where like there's people have longevity in music because they're good people. And so someone like Grohl, like no one ever gave up on him. Even when like I'm sure like he's like, I'm gonna make this solo record, call it Foo Fighters. And people were like, we want to help you, Dave, because you're really cool. And then he's just continued on from there.
Yeah, no, I think I'm kind of a fan. It took me a minute to come around to him, but my friend Laura is the backup singer in the band. And I remember we were at a barbecue a few years ago. I'm like, does he know that he's the last real rock star? And she's like, yeah, he knows. I'm like, good.
It's like that great video where he's like, he's doing like a tour of his house and he opens up his fridge. He's got like a bunch of bottles of Dom in there. And he's like, oh, come on, dude. I was in fucking Nirvana. Like he's just totally like, he knows how to like, he's like, you might seem weird that I just like garage fridge has like 5 bottles of Dom. He's like, I'm in fucking Nirvana. Come on, man. It's like pretty funny. Yeah, it's great. I mean, I by all accounts, I've heard he's one of like the sweetest dudes. Yeah. Considering he could totally be an asshole and it'd be okay. Like, right?
Yeah. So how about so from these old bands you're checking out the older stuff from the 70s. Who were the bass players that you started, because you're new to the instrument around the time you started the band, so you're probably not only absorbing the bands and the vibe of the bands and the style of what they're doing, but who the bass players are and how they're approaching playing this stuff.
What's funny is because growing up at that era too, a lot of bass players are just lots of like root note, whatever, like punk single note stuff. And I didn't really know a lot of people that I didn't really understand at that time, like what the bass, like what the possibilities were with bass and how important bass was to like the idiosyncrasies of music and stuff. There's this guy named Jody Giesbrecht, who's a bass player from Saskatoon, who I saw play at a show somewhere. And he was super animated. He played his bass super high up, which obviously is the opposite of what everyone was doing back then. And he was just rocking out, and he was just like just ripping. And I was like, it like changed my mind. I'm like, oh man, like you can play the bass in a way that can not just be a guy with bound below his knee, like just playing a root note kind of thing. And it like changed the way I thought about it. So that like got me really excited. So then when I started listening to like old rock music, I mean, like I was like, oh my God, one of the biggest influences for me at the beginning was Pete Cetera from Chicago. Yeah. Like not Pete Cetera, like you're my inspiration, Pete Cetera, but like Chicago Transit Authority, like that first record, there's something like, it's like, it really opened my eyes. I think Paul McCartney's another one too, where it's like the bass line in some of those songs is the song. And it makes you realize that it's like, you can move around within a song and add something to it and kind of be that interplay that is between the drums and the guitar and be like the glue that kind of keeps those things together. Yeah. And those were kind of some of them. I mean, there's also like, talking about Creedence, like Stu Cook's a really rad bass player. I mean, but the two for me really at that time, I think the biggest one was Pete Cetera. Like that first couple Chicago records before they sort of went really full on he's incredible. And it's like really like the first time I ever sort of like understood that you could cut, there's a way you could meander with the bass that isn't necessarily exactly what everyone else is playing, but kind of can like add another dimension to it. So that he was that one, which it's kind of a weird one. A lot of people write Chicago off as a band that's kind of like, whatever, super 80s and have like 50 albums. But yeah, like those first couple records are unbelievable.
I watched that documentary that came out on them. I don't know when the documentary came out, but that was one of the things I was binging during COVID. I thought it was good. I didn't know that much about them. Like I knew the tunes, I don't think I own anything by them, but like I knew of them and I'm like, all right, this is always a good way to like introduce, let me learn more about this. And I feel like if I can connect with their story somehow, I'll be able to connect with the music a little bit better. So I'm always interested in like reading biographies or watching documentaries on bands and musicians.
Yeah, no, totally.
And after that, it sent me down the rabbit hole a little bit. I started giving them a second look. And you're right. There's some good stuff. There's some good stuff there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's one of those things too where it's fun to discover bands when they have other albums that you don't know and they're way cooler than this stuff. Yeah, I mean, and they're that band really shifted, right? Because the lead singer at the time, I mean, Robert Lamb, Pete Cetera, and Terry Kath in that band all sang. Bass player, keyboard player, and guitar player. But kind of later in like the career, Terry Kath like shot himself drunkenly playing Russian roulette. And so like that really shifted the band because he was like the sort of the main guitar player and the driving force in that band. And that really shifted the dynamic. And as like the late 70s into the 80s happened, they sort of became more of like a hot AC band or something like that at the time. But they were like a dirty like rock band that had full horns and like, so, it's like very different than a lot of stuff that was happening at that time. So
sure, yeah. I mean, then when David Foster got in there on Peter Cetera's solo career, like he got branded as that. It's kind of like what David Foster turned him into. It's just kind of interesting.
But he's an incredible bass player. He's got like I still am yet to sort of figure out what his setup was to get the tone he was getting on some of those early records. It's like it's a really rad sort of like. It's not clean, like it's definitely dirty, but it's not like it's probably just like an amp juiced in a room, in a giant room they're recording in or something like that. But I've never really he's got amazing tone, really like tasteful, like not too like jerk offy with the way he does things. He always brings it back home, but definitely like, goes out there. And so it's one of those things where it was like, it opened my eyes to that. And not to say like if I listened to early records, you would be like, oh wow, he's like really going for it, because I was still very much like an early bass player, but it's like something I sort of strive to for sure.
Nice. What's your signal chain on this last record? Like what bass are you playing? What are you going through? How'd you record the bass on the Sheepdogs last record?
Sure. The last record, I used a few different things. I mean, the main bass that I play is 71 P bass.
Nice.
That's just kind of my go-to. And again, we were just sort of jamming, so it's my jamming bass. And I did a fair amount of DI stuff, and then just sort of like, mixed it. I wasn't like necessarily needing to have it be like a specific amp, but I have a B25B, like an Ampeg B25B that I use a lot when we're jamming, and that's cool. I think it's like I want to say it's a 68 or a 69. It's a cool little amp. I found it at a shop in Portland one time on tour and just grabbed it. But nice. It's a cool, like it's a lower wattage amp, so you can kind of get a little bit more grit on it. Yeah. As well. So yeah, I mean, I'm not a big like pedal guy or anything like that. Like I have a compressor that I use that just gives me a little bit more like live, especially a little bit more top end, because I definitely like to play higher up at times, and so it gives me a little bit more drive in that department. But
is that something you picked up from McCartney?
No, I didn't know. I know. Honestly, it was a guitar tech of ours that was like, oh, really? I was like, man,
no, not the compression pedal. I mean, playing higher on the bass. Is that something?
Probably. Yeah. It was another. This is a Canadian reference here for you. I don't know. Do you know the band Sloan? Do you know that band?
I know. I don't know why I know of them, but I've heard of them.
Like Sloan was like a band from Canada that sort of was like
Sloan, right?
Yeah, Sloan. And so the bass player in Sloan's named Chris Murphy, and Chris Murphy is a super rad dude. He is like an incredible songwriter. He's an incredible singer, bass player. And they've been a band since the 90s. They were sort of like in the earlier 90s touted to kind of be a new Nirvana at one point. And then they, in like 95, 96, they put out an album. 95, they put out an album called Navy Blues, which was like, they went from being sort of a grungy type band to like being more of like a Beatles-esque rock, throwback band. Anyways, Chris Murphy sings high harmonies and plays like a Mustang and plays like up high stuff live. Yeah. And he was someone who was super influential in the Canadian at the time, as like someone I could look up to as contemporary that was doing that. And so that would be another thing, playing up high. Yeah, but obviously have McCartney as well. As definitely like, again, like using Pete's Terror as well, like using all the frets you have to try to like, do different things.
Yeah, the full range of it. Where'd you get it was the 71? Where'd you get the 71P? I got a picture from your PR company, and I think the picture is you playing something that looks like a mid-50s P bass. Like it's got the telly headstock. Yeah. Did you even know? I was gonna say, you act like you don't even know this picture exists.
Oh, you know what? That is. It's that one that it's in. I think it's a studio one. I was maybe on one or two songs I played that one. That's the one that was at the studio. It's like it's like it's got the telly headstock.
Yeah, I like that on basses. I was just talking to
that's cool.
A bass maker last night. He was gonna make me a P bass and send it over. He's like, "What do you want?" I'm like, "Dude, I want the telly headstock."
Nice, yeah, that's cool. Yeah. I'll have to, I don't remember what year that one was. I forgot about that. It's funny because it's like that thing where we did it over so many sessions, and you would just grab an instrument and sit down and play, and if it sounded good and whatever you're into it, we would record it. So.
How many days were you in the studio for Out of Sight?
We did it over the course of several months, but I mean, probably a total of like, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks all lumped together. If you like, but again, it was like spaced out, which is cool. Like, I don't know, like how you like when it comes to like writing, like I like to have time away from stuff. So I like to be able to jam stuff and then like go home and like think about it. I'm not like amazing at like really coming up with good stuff right on the spot when it comes to like being in the studio. So we would like work on something, and then I'd go away and we'd come back and we continue working on it. And I like that. So we sort of spaced it out based on the proximity of the fact that everyone had to be in the same city. We'd all kind of come together. So it was cool though. I mean, that was good. Yeah, I would say it's probably about, 3 weeks, maybe a month total, all said and done.
Okay, that sounds like it's a much more relaxed, schedule than some studio dates can be, where it's just like, all right, we got 4 days, to do 75 tunes. Go. Yeah, it's just like
and you like you gotta learn them, and you gotta like
your ears are shot after like 6 hours, and you're
We've done that one too. We did in 2012. We did a record with Pat Carney from the Black Keys, and he had a very short window of time to like produce a record for us. And so it was basically between when El Camino came out and when they went on tour, and we had like 2.5 weeks to write record and finish an entire record.
Oof.
I will never do that again. No fun.
Oof.
It's I mean, we had fun, but you know, I like to
Say that again. Write, record, and release.
And write, record, and finish. Like,
finish.
Like
okay, but you didn't have to get
it
it mixed and mastered.
No, it's not like,
like, oh my gosh. Oh my god.
Like, what is this? Like 1956? Like, we gotta get this out. This single's going to #1.
Yeah.
Awesome. Like, no, it was just, you know, so in this case, we weren't actually even thinking we were going to necessarily put each of these songs out. It was like, let's focus on one track, make it as good as it can be. Because we did it all live off the floor in the same room. And it was cool. It was like, for us, it was very relaxed and very like no pressure. And if a song didn't work out, it didn't work out. You didn't have to be like, fuck, we just blew 2 days on this song. And you know, whatever. So, yeah.
What is the title of the album refer to? I'm always curious when the title of albums aren't a song title. It seems like there's a purpose in the writing or a narrative that with all the songs together create a story or an idea. So what does Out of Sight refer to?
It's kind of, I wish there was a good story to it. You made me think I'm probably like, you're an early like long form interviewer. So I'm definitely going to like think of a good, sometimes we'll make them up. Honestly, it's like with this one, like everything, we didn't even think about, it wasn't conceptualized as like a whole piece. It was like, let's just make music. When they came to the title, we were like, we like 2-word titles and we thought that sounded cool. Because again, it's like naming a band or naming an album or whatever. It's so hard because it's like, fuck, it's like, it's so easy to be like, look up on the internet and be like, okay, there's like a million albums.
What should I call my band?
Yeah. Oh man, I mean, that's a whole other thing, right?
We're going to come back to it. I want to, because Sheepdogs is the original name, and I want to know why you landed on that. Okay, but for right now, we're on the album still. So it was just really something that you like the sound of. Yeah, no, exactly. We kind of liked it. We liked the idea. The album itself sort of lends itself a little bit to more of like a later 70s vibe, to which, I mean, it's like a lot of stuff in the later 70s visually went like space. And so you thought it was kind of like, and so that's why the artwork kind of goes that way a little bit too. And it's fun to kind of like lean into it. It just sort of, made cool. sense. I mean, cool. I guess you could also say that a lot of the themes around this record really did lean towards like not making music that was, we tried very hard to not think about the pandemic while it was going on. And like make music that's going to be a good soundtrack to the future. So you could probably say that a lot of the songs are like wishful thinking, like looking forward to being able to do that. And I think you could say a lot of that really felt like it was like you didn't know it was coming out of sight. So you could kind of like say, so it was a conversation we had. And we were very consciously, we're like, listen, I'm like making up the story here as we go. No, this is great. Like, this is great. Yeah.
So we were like the whole.
These are the new liner
like,
notes.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh shit.
Yeah.
No, but it felt like you didn't really know. It was weird to make like music that you're like, I can't wait to like drink beers and party to this music. But it's like, but when is that going to happen? Because this shit is going on so long. And so it was, but we very consciously were like, nobody's going to want to listen to music about the pandemic. Like I always laugh, like nobody's going to want to go back and be like, I really want to watch that live stream that band did in, like May 2020. It's like, fuck no, I don't want to be reminded of that shit ever.
Right. Let's all just move past it. So now on to the band title. So the Sheepdogs wasn't the original band name. What was the original band name? And then how did you come into the Sheepdogs?
Sure. I mean, same thing. The original name was, The Breaks. We were like just jamming and we were trying to come up with a name that would be the band, lots of the bands at the time. And then The Breaks we were really into. And we were going to put out a record and we like the internet looked it up and there was like another band called The Breaks. Although I don't know if, whatever. And so then we had to change the name. And so it was this like panic because we were going to put out like our first record and we didn't have a name. Yeah. So we just sort of like made a big list and picked one off of it. I mean, we were all like shaggy guys. We had like long hair and beards and things.
What else was on the list? Do you remember anything else from the list?
Oh man, there's so many bad ones.
Because anytime you're naming a band, it becomes like there's some good ideas in there, and then the conversation takes such a left turn. And somebody says something really, probably something I can't repeat on the mic right now. It'll just be some super off-color joke, and then that snowballs for like a 4-day conversation. But they're hilarious.
Oh, I mean, they're amazing. And then you're like, and then nobody names a band being like, we're going to be a band 20 years from now. We're still going to be like, what was the reason you called your band name this? And it's like so funny. So you don't name a band thinking of that. It's like, I always say like, give the band whatever name. You got to make a name for yourself. It's like you can take any. I mean, the Beatles is a shitty band name, right?
It's a
but like,
band name,
nobody's like thinking that now, right?
Yeah.
So maybe people are, but no. So I think the Sheepdogs is the thing. We're Shaggy. There was a band called Mondo Diao at that time. They had a song called Sheepdog, which is kind of a sweet song, and not like rock thing. Which is funny because years later, we played in New York. The lead singer of Mondo Diao was walking down the street and he saw Sheepdogs on a sign, and he came to our show. And then we had mutual friends, met us afterwards, and we were like, he's like, it's funny you say that. I saw that sign and it made me think of that song.
Oh, that's
why I came into the show. That's like a real thing. And so we were like, yeah, it was sort of based on the song by your band.
Okay.
So yeah, but there isn't really. I mean, we've made up so many hilarious stories about the origin, because you do certain interviews where that's like their big question. They've like got their list. Their number one is like, where do you get the name from? And so I wish we had a better name. I wish like our better story.
Okay, like that's fine. I like how it happened to be. Like that's actually cool, and it's really cool that you met the dude. But now I want to hear one of the stories that you tell. Like, what's one of the, you know how when people like with complicated names go to Starbucks and they have a Starbucks name, it's just like an automated response. I want to hear the automated response to the name.
There's a few of them. One of them is that Ewan is from Australia, and he was born in Australia, moved to Canada like much later.
Okay.
And he always tells a story that when he was a young boy, he like dreamt of being in Canada and playing in a rock and roll band. And he was sitting in a park and he saw a sheep and a sheep dog go by. I saw a sheep and a dog. And then he just decided, you know what? When I start a band, I'm going to call it the Sheepdogs. And I was like, there's like, they're floating around. Every once in a while, you'll see it like pop up on like something that somebody's pulled from another story or something.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, something like that. There's definitely been made up on the spot too.
Yeah,
sure.
I think it's more fun to do stuff like that. Like every time you tell this story, don't ever tell the real one. Just make one up every time. You know, so exactly. It's like this elusive thing no one really knows, but it's entertainment at the same time. Totally.
Yeah, but the word of advice to any young man, like, have a really good story, because people are going to ask you that.
Even or just make up the story. Like, make up the band name and then write come up with the backstory.
Yeah, no, totally. But I mean, I guess I'm sure if you're like Humphreys McGee or something like that probably gets that asked more often than like, or at least be harder to come up with something, right?
Right.
I think the best one is Steely Dan. Like, I still think that's.
You think that's better than Led Zeppelin?
The best like origin story. It was just the name of a vibrator, right? Like that was just like, they're like, we're gonna be called Steely Dan because it's the name of a vibrator they saw in like a magazine. Like that's like, did anyone else like just say that, shut them down? Story over. So it's like,
I kind of like Led Zeppelin. I think that's my favorite band story name, or at least one of them. Because who was it? Somebody who knows a lot about rock history will probably correct me, but was it Robert Daltrey from The Who that said like he first heard him and like, these guys are gonna bomb like a Led Zeppelin? Like, and it was all like, it was like these words that were spoke over them about how they were gonna fail, and then they're just like, yep, Led Zeppelin, we're going with it.
Yeah,
and now it's now it's Zeppelin and they're huge, and I don't remember. I'm gonna have to look that up now.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's someone like that. I mean, it's definitely in that whole scene of things. But yeah. That's one of the best. Like there isn't a lot of really good stories behind them, and when they are good, they're really good. And then there's a whole bunch of just random ones. That is a good one. What a better way? Like, what better fuck you to that comment?
Exactly.
Have that name and then become like literally like it's not even like a band name. It's like an adjective or something.
Yeah,
like that,
I know. No, I mean, like how cool is it to like? No one ever says like I'm listening to Led Zeppelin. They're just like Zeppelin. It's just Zeppelin now. And then and they've created such a sound that you could be like, do that Robert Plant thing, do that Jimmy Page thing, do the John Paul Jones thing. Like everybody it's iconic. I love that band.
Yeah, no, totally love that band, big time.
What do you listen to in your free time? Or what are you listening to in your free time right now? You're rocking the Bob Seger t-shirt. This is just an audio podcast, but I want to bring attention to Bob Seger's in the building. Seeger. Yeah.
Oh my God, love me some Seger. I don't know. It seems like I'll like pull out my thing. It's funny because I kind of go all over the map, right? Because I find that for me, like music is obviously so, I mean, not for me, for everybody, music is so thematic. So depending on what I'm doing, like if we're on tour, I'm probably not going to want to just listen to rock bangers all day long because I'm doing that every single night.
Right.
And so I'm, venturing more into,
I think, I know for me, like whatever gig I just did, like for context, like I work freelance in LA. So whatever gig I just did, I'm not going to listen to that on the drive home. It'll probably be the complete opposite. So if I just got doing a jazz gig, like I'm going to listen to like whatever the radio is playing for pop or hip hop or country or something completely different just to cleanse the palate. So now you have, with that in mind, and that idea in mind, you play these songs, you've been playing these songs, you were there in the creation of these songs.
Mm-hmm.
You know these songs better than everybody, maybe the guys in the band too, saying that you know it better than them.
Totally.
Maybe you get a little burnt out, after night after night after night of hearing the same song. So what do you listen to clear the palate?
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, I mean, one thing I got really into even over the pandemic, but is exotica music. Like I know it's very general, but like I got really into it because it's so thematic, and it's like if you're like making dinner or you're barbecuing or just like out for a walk, it's like very like you almost feel like you're in a movie or something like that. Okay. It's like, and it's such a general term, right? It's like that, like Les Baxter, or I don't know what else would be considered exotica, like Martin Denny or I don't know. It's like that stuff where it's got like bird sounds, and it's like it's sort of like
meditation music.
No, it's like stuff from like the 50s and 60s where like white dudes made music that sounded like it was sort of from like the Orient, and I say that with making finger quotes.
So white people jacking another culture, like just white people being the worst in another way. That's what it is.
Big time.
Yeah.
But then it's like sort of like the type of music that you would imagine would be played at like a cocktail party, in like the Hollywood Hills in like 1966 or something like that. You know what I mean? It's it's cool. It's not like overtly racist, but it is totally like of an era. It's of an era where like it's not coming from there's no ill will intended for it, but it's definitely like, it'd be something that you would put on and you imagine what they would listen to in Hawaii or somewhere in like Tahiti or something like that, but really it's not. But musically, it's really cool. I really like it, and it definitely is like very chill kind of stuff. But I also like find myself drawn to like, let me some good examples, like the Fruit Bats. I really love the Fruit Bats. They put out a record over the pandemic. It's Gold Past Life is what it's called, I think. And and it's like super good, just like feel good music. I mean, I'm listening to like, more like country stuff or more just, leans a little bit more chill than just like straight ahead. Not to say like our albums and our songs are all like just straight ahead rock songs, but I find myself.
This last record is it's a very feel good record. It's just like good vibes, hanging out in the backyard. You mentioned barbecuing the other day. You mentioned barbecuing just a second ago. But it's that thing. It's something you put on when you're hanging out with buddies. That's going to be a soundtrack to community and recreation and good times. Like all that was communicated.
Totally. Yeah. No, totally. Yeah. No, I mean, I kind of go all over the map, but I think like definitely like I lean a little bit more like not like chill, but maybe a little bit less. Like I don't know if there's a time and a place for everything. I mean, I'm a big like motorcycle guy, and I like there's certain music that I'll like get like fire up if I'm going to go for like a ride or something like that. But definitely if I'm just like at home, I'm not like just cranking the like Zeppelin or something like that.
So you sing harmonies in the band. When
I do, yeah.
How long into the band did you start? At what point did you start singing in the band? Was this right out of the gate? You're just like, all right, yeah, let's do some harmonies.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to. I don't think the first time you try to sing harmony, it's very good unless you're good at it. Because again, we were all like learning how to do it. But yeah, I mean, the music we liked, everyone's singing, so we tried pretty early on. When we got good at it, or at least good enough to like have it be super passable, was maybe a different story. But yeah, like pretty early on, we wanted to we liked the idea of a band playing together and singing together, and that's always been like a big part of how we've always done things. And the bands that we looked up to, that was a part of what they did too. So we just sort of learned. So, I mean, none of us were professionally trained singers or anything like that.
Yeah.
It was just sort of like, and I have a higher range, higher register. And so I sang the higher part and sang the drummer initially when it was just the three of us. And now that there's five of us and we all sing, it's like, you can do some pretty fun things. And we're not doing like weird, like, choral chord type things. We're like, you can like,
it doesn't sound like a
like,
Bach chorale or anything.
yeah, exactly. But no, I mean, we love like guys all singing and playing together. The guys are really big into guitar harmony too. Mm-hmm. So like, we really like, we're not trying to be nerdy, but we like the idea of bringing some of those elements of actually having harmony be part of melody and all those things. Sure. And I think it's cool. And it also is just like, there's power to having a bunch of people singing together. And
I think so.
We're not the first band to do it by any means, but it's cool to like, it was something we wanted to be able to do. So we learned to do.
It's a very cool thing that I do think is both underutilized and can easily be overdone.
Totally.
It's great. Like,
where do we land? Where do we land in your spectrum?
I liked it. I liked it a lot because there's elements on it where you wouldn't see it coming, and I'm like, oh wow, this takes me right to like the Eagles or the band America. Or like, where they really do that. I'm like, oh yeah, this is sick. But it's not at all overkill where it's like, oh, hey, double chorus. Here come the harmonies. Like I didn't.
All of us, finger in the mirror around
That's back to the 1950s recording session. All of you guys, one can on, singing around the mic. Some guy with a cigar in the control room. Yeah, great work, kids. Great work.
We're going to take you right to the top. Yeah. Sign this publishing contract.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, I don't think it's one of those things it's funny because like one of the songs in the new record, Find the Truth, and the chorus, we only have harmony on the second time he sings. Where you would think that even when we started playing it live, I'm like instinctively want to go up to the mic and sing harmony, but we only put it on the second time that he says Find the Truth. And we like to like not be super predictable all the time with it. But yeah, it's like also fun to create sort of like soundscapes in a sense with harmony and be in the studio and mess around with that and mess around singing like all of us on the same mic sometimes doubling, tripling up things to really like build out and have different people sliding different ways, like not going like full Beach Boys or anything like that. But like, there's ways you can do really cool. Like it's really fun to do. And it's another instrument that you can use.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. They well put. How does this song for listeners that might not be familiar with your older work, how is this different from previous records by the Sheepdogs?
Sure. I mean, I mentioned probably our most successful record was in 2012, at least in Canada. We got like really popular around 2011, 2012. And then we put out a record, the one I was talking about, we did with Pat Carney. And that's very like Black Keys of the era sounding. Like he definitely put that touch on it. Sure. Prior to that, our record, we recorded in a house by ourselves, figuring it out. So it was a very big departure. But sort of since then, like the last record had a lot of like, it was a double record. It was 18 songs. It had lots of like different instrumentation on it. It had like pedal steel and banjo and mandolin. And we like kind of like really like explored that studio space thing where we just kind of threw a bunch of things at it. Definitely leans a little bit more probably on the country side, a little bit more. Whereas this is probably a little bit more, I mean, it's not like it's a straight ahead rock record. Like it's going to just be like, like whatever, what you would consider like rock, but it's definitely like, it has those elements of Americana, but it definitely doesn't lean as much. Like there is like a song like Carrying On, the record has pedal steel still and stuff like that. But I mean, it's definitely a continuation. I mean, we don't want to make the same record every time. Sure. We don't want to write the same songs over and over again, but we're also like not suddenly going to put out like a, 80s synth pop record or something like that, right? So you kind of like find that.
Right. Nothing that sounds like Depeche Mode is going to be coming out from the Sheepdogs.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be interested in trying. But,
put some banjo.
We're very honest on who we are, and we're not like pretending to be. I mean, from the beginning, it was always like, let's make the music we like to make. Hope other people like it. And at points in our life, like you mentioned, there was eras in which people were like, you're never going to get on the radio unless you sound like Nickelback, and like. We're like, well, we don't want to sound like Nickelback or, or whatever. Yeah. And I mean, we're now in a wonderful era. Well, musicians don't get paid well for streams. It allows avenues in which people can discover you. You don't have to go down a single track path in order to like be known. And I think that's cool. And so we just want to continue doing what we're doing. And the music we like is the stuff we make. And so every record we try to like make more songs that we like and that we be into. Like you said, that would be good for barbecuing or hanging out with your buds or whatever. Yeah.
No, I love that approach. I love the approach of like, if instead of trying to create this product that you think will sell, which is the song, just create something you believe in and that you had fun making. Because I think all that is now woven into the content and the fabric of what you're creating. And that communicates more than anything. Like you could sit down with a team of staff writers or songwriters, whatever, and concoct a song that we're sure it's the number one hit, but it's going to sound sterile. Like there's no human in it.
And there's no real longevity to that either. I mean, the funny part about this, you're talking, we've been a band for almost 20 years and we have three guys that started this band are still in this band. We've had a few members come and go, but like the three of us that literally started together. And part of that is because there's been tensions and things and ups and downs. I mean, that's part of being in a band, but it's like, we still sort of at the core of the same thing. And I think there's a longevity to that. Whereas like, there are people who have had long careers with other writers and things like that. It's fine. But, it's something you said about just like making honest music and trying to like succeed with that as a team of people or a group of people that are like-minded versus like writing something to have like having a single moment of success to me is like, that just eventually goes away. Like very few people can take that and parlay that into a career. And what we wanted to be as a career, like we're not just like, we want to succeed. We want to like be musicians who play the music we like. And we even, weave back and forth between whether rock music is popular or not, whatever that, however that happens.
Oh man, that's an interesting conversation. I want to talk about that with you. I also want to talk about, the Sheepdogs was the first unsigned band ever to be on the cover of Rolling Stone, correct? Did I have that right?
Yeah.
So now, if you can get to that level of success, that's a successful moment, I think, in anybody's career, any musician's career, any artist's career. What is the need for a label? You guys did clearly a lot of heavy lifting without a label. What's the label bringing to the table right now?
I mean, it's an interesting question. But I mean, the Rolling Stone thing was a funny thing. We were contacted literally out of the blue by an A&R person from Atlantic and somebody from Rolling Stone to say, we're putting together a group of artists to be the first unsigned, like a competition to be the first unsigned band. Okay. It's not something we like submitted to. We just like, they were like, we think you're one of the best unsigned bands. Like we discovered you, like you'd be part of this thing. So we did this whole competition where it was like voting and stuff and we ended up winning. But it's a funny thing, much to what I was just saying about the longevity is like, I mean, that's just like some people are like, oh, you made it. It's like, no, we didn't. Like we won a thing. We were on the cover of the Stone. It was amazing. We got a lot of like publicity and a lot of people paying attention to us. But then it's like, how do you take that and continue to have a career?
What do you do with that now? Like, cool, I was on the cover of a magazine.
Yeah, and it's like it was cool. Whatever. And I think and also it's like, how can I prove to people that we're not just a flash in the pan band that won a competition? We're a real band, and they're a band for 7 years.
Right.
Prior to that,
we've been grinding it out. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like, it was all about just continuing to move forward and do that. So, I mean, so much of what we've done since then is trying to continue forward, and there's like steps forward and steps back that happen with something like that. But overall, it's just been like continuing to put out music, continue to tour, put on great live shows, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, the funny thing about that though, is the one thing you learn with everything like that is like, no matter how much you succeed, nobody is ever going to care as much about what you do than you. So like the biggest artists in the world, man, I mean, I don't know, like no matter how much money you're giving somebody or whatever that is, that person is still not going to care as much as you. So we learned very early on that it was important to like still control the things that you can and lean on the people and things that you can't do. So, I mean, so I manage the band. I'm the band manager. We have a label, but I'm like very involved. I also have like, I do all the production, for video production stuff for us. So I have like people that work for me, that work for us, that help us do all like the videos content, all the social media content. I mean, we do all that stuff in-house. We don't want the label that we basically use as a way to help us like publicly get the music out there, help us like push, in areas in streaming or not publicity necessarily, but like streaming and things, marketing, helping market the music.
Okay.
That's what we do. But everything else, I mean, it's the funny thing, and we're a really weird part of music right now where like TikTok is like the way that people are marketing music.
Okay. Yeah. Talk to me about TikTok because I don't know about it. I've never been on it. I don't. I kind of automatically I check out when someone's like, oh, I saw this on TikTok. Like, whatever. Like, I'm 40. I don't. At 40, like I'm now old enough to be like, I don't care what the kids are doing. Like I can officially say that. But
it's a really funny thing because that's what now all the labels are like TikTok. It's all about like TikTok, get a TikTok. It's a thing. And the reason is, and the thing that makes TikTok cool is it's a music driven social media. So you can see why if like people get really into a song on there, it's a way that people can discover music. It's a way that people like take your music and make a video and they put it in there. And then other people discover it. So like you can see, and TikTok is weird because it's run by a Chinese AI company. And so they have like crazy technology in the back end that like makes like algorithms like crazier than any other social media. So shit like blows up, like really can get really big randomly. And so but it's a funny thing because now labels, rather than being like, we're going to make you a star, they're like, this artist, we need you to come up with, do funny things on TikTok, and that's going to make you. Anyway, so like the onus is being shifted back onto the artist greater than probably ever to like, you need to be the one that needs to like, you need to create a persona or you need to create these things. So there's a lot of young artists that are probably in LA right now being like molded into how they can like get their TikTok to blow up, which is like disappointing. So
it's almost just like social media coaches, like record labels turned into
I know.
social media
really
content
weird.
Coaches.
But I mean, so the way that we've always done it is like, I understand that there's a relationship that has to be had with somebody's going to like, if you're going to partner with someone to help put out your music and they provide a value, then it's a partnership. And that's how I've always worked with labels. So the funny thing with the TikTok thing is like, I have a relationship with the label. They're saying you got to do things on TikTok. So we're figuring out ways that we can do it. But I'm also old too, man. Like I don't totally get it. But I also get to see that I enjoy every time I go on TikTok, I'll like find something I'm like, okay, that's kind of funny. Like we put a video up there. I saw this thing where, it's like there's like videos you see and you're like, okay, we could maybe do something that's kind of like that or whatever. So we kind of like carve our own thing out from that. And there's a power to that, but at the same time, like we've always seen the importance of like still keeping control and not just being like the label will take care of it. They're gonna like make us, And so as a result, like I see that there's a value in a label, but I think it's really important that artists also know that you have a value, and that even more so now with TikTok, the value you're being marketed as you, not just your music. So to hold on and control that as much as possible to allow yourself sort of the autonomy to do it. So that's something that we learned very early on, especially because we did it for so long by ourselves, that we've always held on to that. So, it makes for a very interesting kind of journey in this world of a lot of people, bigger people on labels and things like that. And you're dealing with them and they're kind of taken aback when you can be like, oh no, actually like that's not what we want to do. And I don't want to do that.
Right. It's self-contained. We know what we're doing and we can make it happen.
And maybe we won't ever be like the biggest band in the world, but I'm okay with that. I would rather have the control than let somebody else kind of take us in a direction that we don't want to go.
Dude, thanks for doing this.
Well, thanks so much.